With the body now curing, the interior fully finished, I needed to move on to the chassis. So all of the parts were cut out of the sprues one by one. I cleaned them up a little bit, removing some of those parts that connect to the sprues and even some mold lines here and there as well, and could then also start assembly on the engine. Most of the parts come separately and need to be exactly the same color, so before painting everything separately, it of course is a lot easier to make one big part than to have 20 separate ones. So everything was glued together and could then later on be moved into the spray booth, starting with some primer. So like I said, all the components that could be glued together before painting now are glued together. All the other parts are prepped and ready for primer. After coating everything in a nice thin coat of primer, I quickly moved on to giving it various different colors, starting with the chassis. Now I've seen a couple of reference photos with a couple of parts from the chassis in a goldish, brownish, tannish color. I didn't have any tan and I didn't really have any sealer colors, so I just used a gold instead to mainly spray the center part and then add some overspray from the black on the sides to mainly just hide it and neaten it up a bit, but just to give it a bit of a realistic looking chassis. All the other parts are now painted, so it was time to finish off the chassis with adding the black. I'm going to do the wheel wells in the full coating of black just to give it a cleaner look from the outside, and then just add it on the edges and leave the center a bit exposed with that goldish look. The airbrushing is now all completed and I could move on to hand painting some of the other details on the chassis. A couple of the heat shields were painted with a brush and some silver paints. I also added some other highlights here and there, and of course finished it off with some black as well. I've also tried a different way of mounting my camera. Instead of mounting it to my head with a head strap, I've now mounted it to a desk with a desk mount, of course, duh. And this gives a bit of a steady cam look, and it also gets in closer a bit to the project itself. Let me know in the comments if you prefer this, as it is a bit closer, shows a bit more of the detail, and it's not as shaky, of course, or if you prefer the old look and have it mounted to my head again. The center of the chassis is of course that goldish color, and the black is surrounding it from the edges, and therefore making it look a bit dirtier than it probably should be for a brand new car, and therefore I had to blend in some of the other components as well. So I added some Tamiya Panelline accent color on all of the heat shields, some of the lower parts of the chassis as well, and mainly on all of the silver parts. After all of the detailing, painting, and even some weathering, it was time to put it all together, just using some super glue from Bob Smith Industries, and also trying to finish off the chassis. Now in this video I'm just going to show all of the chassis components, and in the next video I will focus on some of the parts that I did on the body, finishing that up and adding all of the chassis to it, including the mounting of the wheels. So that's it for me on this one. I'll see you in the next video.